Welcome to People's Blessing Show, where conversations spark, ideas ignite, and perspective collide. Get ready for engaging discussions, captivating guests, and thought-provoking insights that will leave you inspired. From current events to personal stories, this is People's Blessing Show with Reverend Blessing Ajayi.
Hello, welcome to People's Blessing Show. Today, I have a honorable mentor, mother, community leader, a trailblazer, a black community heroine in our midst today. I'm talking of Honorable Jane Augustine. Honorable Jane Augustine is a Canadian politician, an educator who made history as the first African Canadian woman to be elected to the House of Commons. And we are privileged to have her in our midst today. So, how are you, ma'am?
Well, I'm delighted to be with you today. You know, it's the time of the year when friends are getting together, when community is getting energized because of the discussions around Christmas coming. And so coming here, it's like my beginning, my Christmas event.
Thank you so much. And I also want to introduce my co-host.
Yeah.
Pastor Prince Ukela.
Thank you, the Rev.
You're welcome.
It's nice being with you today on the People's Blessing Show.
I tell you.
I'm so glad and honored to be on the same set with our own mother. Thank you so much, Ma. We celebrate you. Thank you for being a blessing. Thank you for what you have done and what you are doing for the black community. And not just in Canada, but all over the world. We are proud of you, Ma.
Thank you. So at People Blessing Show, we educate, empower, inspire, inform, and also we tell stories, documentaries, history of our community and diverse. Today, be with us as we go with a discussion with our honorable, I call her heroine of the black community in Canada and worldwide. Yeah. So stay tuned.
This is People's Blessing Show with Reverend Blessing Ajayi.
Thank you. You're welcome, man.
Wow. Thank you so much, man. It's nice. I'm actually thrilled, and thank God for the honor to be here with you and on the People's Blessing Show and the Black Community Canada TV. So it's a unique day to us, and we want to maximize this opportunity. So let me start by asking you. You know, your journey to Parliament Hill. You've had an illustrious career. From being Canada's first black female member of Parliament to serving as a cabinet minister. So, can you share some highlights from your journey?
Well, my journey didn't really start in 1993. I came to Canada in 1960. I came at a time when we had no Charter of Rights and Freedom. That didn't come until 1980 something. And we had none of the rules and policies and things that we have today. No discussions around the issue of diversity and inclusion and all of these. It was one of these worlds where you came and you tried to make your place in the society. In 1993, when I was elected as the first black woman, the first Canadian black woman to be elected to the Parliament of Canada, it was an awesome time. It was a time when, as community, we said, look, we've been in this country since 1603. No. And this is 1993 that we would have a black woman. Granted, there were two black men ahead of me. There was Lincoln Alexander and there was Howard McCurdy. But those two had left the Parliament of Canada by 1993. Oh. And so I had no role models, people who had walked the halls, people who had done it to follow. And so, I jokingly say there were no breadcrumbs left, for me to follow. And so I had to make my way in that arena. But I came to the Parliament of Canada with transferable skills. I had been an educator. I had been a school teacher, a vice principal, a principal, supervisory responsibility, officer's responsibility. I was on boards. I was in the boardrooms of the nation, as it were.
Wow.
I had skills and talents and abilities that I brought with me to the House of Commons, so that those transferable skills served me in good stead.
Wow.
I knew how to run a meeting. I knew how to read documents. I knew how to interpret legislation, all of those essential parts of the work that takes place. I also learned over the years how to work in a team environment, because the House of Commons is really, and politics, is a team sport.
That's right.
You have to work with others so they can work with you. You have to support others so they could support you
as well.
And you have also to be a visionary in terms of where it is you want to go and what you want to do with this position that you hold.
That's interesting.
Okay, I wanted to ask that, like we know, your work has been focused on improving women and girls as an initiative. What inspired you to take that initiation?
In order to answer that question, I have to go back. I have to do the Sankofa thing, and that is go back in order to look at the present and why it was that I got engaged with the issue of women and girls. I grew up as a girl in Happy Hill, St. George's, Grenada. I grew up at a time when emphasis was put on the education of the boys, when parents would put envelopes together to send their boys away to England, to US, and to other places for an education so they could come back as a professional. A lot of room somehow was not made for girls, and a lot of the times it was the emphasis and the affirmation I got from my grandmother, who was always boasting about my girl is so bright, and look at the marks she's getting, and girl, there is nothing you can do. You can just go for it. And so I grew up in an environment where, as a girl, I was encouraged. I was affirmed. I was somehow given the impression that I could do whatever my boy cousins and my and relatives who were boys could do. And so I realized that one had to strengthen young women. One had to ensure that young women got the kind of education, got the kind of support, got the kind of community wraparound that's essential so that they could be contributing member of the society and not be seen as just
someone
put to the side. And also I grew up with a sense that whatever boys can do, that I can do.
Yes, can.
So it's not just you make the bed and he does the whatever, but I grew up with a sense that whatever the young men were engaged in, whether it was sporting activities, whether it was participating in school endeavors. I went to a girls' school, St. Joseph's Convent High School, and so I was surrounded by girls and very strong women educators, and I grew up with a sense that I could find my place in the world as a young woman and as a woman. And so I felt that I had to carry on and encourage young women.
That's very good. And I think it's also an encouragement to parents, to be able to give their children, that courage.
That's right.
That they can do better.
Yes.
And I believe your environment was very encouraging at that time. I want to say that you are one of the person that inspires me so much that, people do a lot of things. But there is this uniqueness about you. That name, I want to ask you again, who is Honorable Jane Austen. Because everywhere, sometimes I wonder how people they may say, oh, are you the only one? Why are they always talking about you? Everywhere you go,
Yes.
just press anything. And like, you live in Toronto, but even in Brampton, we are celebrating you everywhere. What is that unique thing about this name?
Well, again, going back to Happy Hill, it was the way that I grew up. I grew up with with a grandmother who didn't have a lot of, she didn't have a PhD, she didn't have a master's degree. She was schooled in the school, as they say, of hard knocks. Yet she believed in education, and she believed that things can be accomplished by individuals being part of communities. So I learned how to work as a team. I learned to be respectful of others. I learned that if it's to be, it's up to me. If you want something to happen, you can say, let Pastor do this, or let this other person do this. You get involved. And I learned also that there was nothing that was beneath an individual to do. I learned that any work, any job, was, as long as it was honest, was worthy. So when I came here, I worked as a domestic in somebody's, in a family's home. I came on.
Like any other person.
What was called a domestic scheme. And in the early days, you took whatever job there was, whether it was selling shoes at Eaton's after school, or whatever you took, as long as it was honest, as long as one could make their contribution to whatever there was in the society.
Wow.
And so I started to look around, to look for other people who were trying to make the society better. And I keep talking about the fact in the early days, in the late 50s, early 60s, the community was into what we call nation building. Canada was into nation building. Canada was into questioning, who are we as Canadians? Who are we in Canadian society? Are we just English and French? Are we just... what is the diversity, and how can we ensure that people from diverse communities can come to Canada and can make their way in Canadian society? Because there was a sad history earlier where you had an immigration minister saying, well, you can't have people coming from Africa or from those countries because the weather conditions would be such that they would not be able to tolerate the Canadian weather. And so immigration and a whole lot of things happened as a result of stereotypes, as a result of lack of knowledge, as a result of the fact that there was no real understanding that given an opportunity that we can find ourselves very much as part of Canadian society. So I did things here and there and everywhere. I worked with everyone in the society, whether they were Chinese or Japanese or Asians or whatever. I can walk into any community organization and feel that I have something in common, or that we have things in common. And then, of course, being elected and having the opportunity to travel the world and focusing on the status of women, focusing on multiculturalism, focusing on what we need to do to build a society that is fair and just and equitable and inclusive. And so when you take that message across, the name Jean Augustine has gotten associated with that message and that ability to be the messenger and the message.
Wow. Thank you.
It is interesting, and I think it's so inspiring to listen to you say this. So many wouldn't have had the privilege to hear what you're saying right now, or just read about this in the books. But this is so deep, and I think we appreciate this. Now, you are someone who also has broken barriers. From at least even your storyline, it shows that you had actually broken down barriers. So, as a trailblazer, you faced numerous challenges throughout your career. Now, how did you overcome these obstacles, and what advice would you give to others who are also facing similar barriers?
Pastor, I think all of us face barriers on a daily basis. All of us face challenges on a daily basis. And yet there are some things that keeps coming up when the question is asked. And it comes back to, you cannot change the direction of the wind, but you could adjust your sail. And so we all have to do that. The other is the fact that learning very early that when you fall on your behind, you have to pick yourself up and keep on going.
That's right.
And I think one of the American social scientists have said, it's not the falling down, but it's the picking the self up. And also recognizing that one cannot do anything on one's own, that one is always part of a community, that the way that we're here as children of God, we're all connected in some way. And that what I do affects you and what you do affect me. And that what we need is to work as a community, to build a community, to face those challenges. Sure, I faced racism. Sure, I faced discrimination in the workplace. Sure, I had to wait my turn for promotional opportunities when I knew I had more than the person that was being promoted above me. But how you handle that, how you deal with this. And it's so important to recognize that those challenges are there in all of our lives, and that we cannot be beaten down by those challenges, and that we relate with each other, so that I talk with you, I take advice from you, I look to see how you conduct yourself, I look to see who has had that fall and how they overcame that. I look at other people with challenges, right? And my grandmother had something she used to say, there, but for the grace of God.
Grace of God.
And for the longest while, I didn't know what that was. When someone came by and they were asking for something, or things had fallen and they had fallen on bad times or whatever, she always said, there, but for the grace of God.
For the grace of God.
And so you have something, you have to be thankful.
Yes.
You have to recognize that you could be that person.
That's right.
And that you can have those challenges. But how we meet the challenges, how we overcome the challenges, how we find people who would support us in order for us to move forward, and how we share and be part of and acknowledge that we are not individuals. No, the old saying, no man is an island.
Nobody does that.
This is People's Blessing Show with Reverend Blessing Ajayi. This is People's Blessing Show with Reverend Blessing Ajayi.
That's right.
Okay, looking at who you are again as a vocal advocate for social justice and human rights, what issue are you most passionate about, and how do you believe we can work towards creating a more just and equitable society?
I am most passionate about inclusion. I am most passionate about the fact that given the opportunity, because when opportunities are denied,
Can't do it.
it is devastating. Given the opportunity, that we need to be given opportunities. We need to be inclusive. And We need to be always working towards that fair and just and equitable society. And there are several things that can help us on the way.
That's right.
And there are several institutions, organizations, and individuals who spend their time learning, teaching, supporting individuals so that they can find their way in the society to reach their full potential. I think you cannot reach your full potential if you are not given the opportunity, if you are not included, if you're not in the room where decisions are made, if you don't have a voice in what is happening around. And I think each one of us has the responsibility to ensure that our voice is heard, to ensure that the organizations we belong to, that we are participating members. We have a lot of people who go to church, who go to organizations, who put their name on lists, but they're not participating. They come and they sit. Their voices are not heard. And so we need to make sure that wherever we are participating members of the community. We're participating members so that we could all work towards the same goal, so that we can all feel that that sense of purpose, and we can all ensure that social justice is that. I always say that we're still on the route. We're not there yet. We're on the route. It's like a work in progress. It's a work in progress.
So with the struggling of the Black community right from your time and now, I know you look at things you have done and how, it's being developed. What will you say about this generation now? Is there an improvement or?
Well, I think it's great improvement. I was at a function the other day, and I look around the room, and there's a room full of Nigerians. And there was a time when I went into a room like that, there would be one. I would be the one Black educator in the room. I would be the one Black teacher in a whole group of educational. I would be the one whatever. Now we see the number. We're here in larger numbers. We're here also recognizing that we have to organize together. One of the things that I say, we have to be careful that we don't silo ourselves so that we are just Nigerians and whatever. We have to make sure, and one of the things that my whole life's work has been, how do we expand into all of the communities so that we're not just siloed. At the same time, when we look at the universities and other academic places, we see a lot of our young men and women getting into fields, like history or coming out as medical doctors or lawyers or whatnot. We have more for young people at school. So we've made some progress. We've also made some progress in terms of legislation. Some things that, for example, I'll give one example that comes to mind is when we had no Landlord and Tenant Act. When a landlord could say, yes, it's for rent, but we don't rent to you people. We know now that they can't say that. We know now we have human rights code. We know now that we have legislation and policies and all of those things. We've worked hard over the years to get there. And so our young people are now the beneficiary of some of that work, that trailblazing work that happened. And so my hope always is that the young people would recognize that where we are today is not where we were, but that we have had to beat along the trail, the potholes, the whatever, to get to where we are today.
Exactly.
And that it's up to them now to take the baton from seniors and elders and older people who have been there and carry it through, and that they never forget that we are a community, never forget that we have to acknowledge each other, that we have to be respectful. And I'm always so pleased when you guys say, Mama G, Mama this, whatever. So I keep thinking, okay, so now I'm 80. I'm 87 years old.
You don't look
I'm
it.
still very active.
You don't look it at all.
Okay,
to be
Mama,
honest.
let me look at the area of the importance of education, because without a doubt, these has helped you, to create these niches and the achievements you have actually made. And I'm looking at education has played a significant role in your life and your career. So what do you believe? Why do you believe education is crucial for personal and societal growth? And what steps can we take to ensure equal access to quality education? Also added to that is the area of mentorship and leadership. You've inspired countless individuals throughout your career. What qualities do you believe are essential for effective leadership, and how can we empower others to become leaders in their own right?
Well, that's an important, long-winded question.
Yeah.
But I think it's an important one because education is kind of like the building block, right? An educated person can make his or her way in the world. It may not happen right away, but that education is kind of like the background that's there to empower and to help them to move along. As I said earlier, I grew up in Happy Hill, St. George's, Grenada. I went to elementary school. I went to high school. And when I came to Canada, I was looking for the opportunity for Teachers College, a BA degree, a master's degree, and make my way in the world. So education has been the building bridge for me. Right? The steps to get me to where I am.
Wow.
Education also gives you credibility. That when you speak, because you've read and because you've learned and because you've associated, because you have been in an environment of conversation and knowledge and whatever else, one has something to offer because of education. I think also that our parents and our communities recognize that education is important.
That's right.
Look at the number of scholarships now that we're giving in the community. Look at the number of awards that are being given and the way in which we're telling our young people, work for this scholarship, get this amount, that we help to get them into places where they would develop this education. But again, we, and you in particular, have a responsibility to mentor those young people, to help them along so that when they stumble, we are there as community to help them to move on, to help them up, and to show them the models that there are. When I was coming up, as they would say in Grenada, I didn't have a lot of mentors. There were people I looked at, saw what they were doing, admired what they were doing, wish I was like them, but didn't have the means and the wherewithal. But it was important to have those role models and those mentors there. And one of the things that I hope is that people would look and say, you see, Jean, I could be like her. If she ran and she won, I could run.
Exactly.
Right?
I could win.
I could win. I could win. And I think this is what we have to encourage. There's an old saying, if you can see it, you can be it.
That's it.
And we know that this is one of the reasons we all work in organizations, in our church groups, and when we take role models and put them up and put them forward, it's really to give the idea, here, you see it and be it.
This is People's Blessing Show with Reverend Blessing Ajayi.